This is lesson 3 on how to animate in Maya, and we're going to be animating a character rig today. Right, so we'll dive right in, and I'll start by referencing my character rig. The rig's called Rocket Girl Rig. There she is. I've downloaded Rocket Girl Rig from animatorsresourcekit.blog, which is a fantastic website where you can download loads of rigs as well as tons of other resources for Maya. Animators Resource Kit, all one word, .blog. Okay, so we're gonna do something really simple today. We're not gonna do a full character animation with this rig because I feel like that would be too much too soon. Instead, we're just gonna do a simple hand wave. There's a few things I want to do before I go any further. I'm gonna make sure that on show I'm showing nothing but the polygons to show me the model and the curves to show me the controls, because I don't want to accidentally click on anything fundamental within this rig that might break it. Up here on the top bar as well, I'm going to deselect geometry so that I can't accidentally click on any geometry and pull it around. I'm also going to deselect bones and IK handles, so these two here. Right, so the first thing we're going to need is a render cam to look through. As I've said in previous tutorials, you'll normally have your render cam provided for you from layout or from previs departments further down the pipeline before the scene eventually gets to you. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to make a render cam, and I'm going to call it render cam all caps. I'm going to put it on a 50 lens because I like 50 lenses, and I'm going to make sure I'm actually looking for it as well. So I'm going to go to panels, perspective, and I'm going to click on render cam. I'll zoom out and position the camera the way I want it. I'm also going to click on this square here with a blue ball inside it to create a film gate. And I'm gonna just this is all about waving, so I think I'll put her like that. That should give me enough space for the hand to go here and wave back and forwards. I'm gonna lock the camera like that by clicking on the camera lock icon in the top left corner, and that'll just stop me from accidentally zooming in and out and changing my render cam after I began animating. Next, I'm just gonna get my layout the way that I like it. So I'm going to hit the space bar and drag this down so that I've got two views. And I've got my render cam view here, so I can always see what's happening. And I want this one here to be the perspective view. So I'm going to hold down space, click and hold on Maya, and go to perspective view. So in general, I'm going to just drag a marquee box over everything. And the reason it looks like her geometry is selected there is because her geometry is under one of the groups that the master control has. So I'm just going to drag a box over everything. And up here, I'm going to key my translates and my rotates because I know that I'm going to be using all of them in this animation. I'm going to click key. I didn't hit the S key because I don't want all the other attributes such as scale and all the other things that are probably buried among all these different controllers. I don't want all of them getting keyed because it'll turn my graph editor into a mess. I'm going to be animating this character waving to the render cam, and I'm not going to do any animation to her face. It's only going to be the arm and the hand, and I'm not going to do any detailed animation. It's just going to be the wrist moving back and forwards, back and forwards. The purpose of this tutorial is to show how I would approach a scene like this and what the workflow is like. We're going to be using a pose to pose workflow with a little bit of straight ahead on top at the end. I'm going to start by getting my first golden position put in place. A golden position, or a golden key, is the storytelling pose, and the purpose of the pose is to get across what's happening in the scene. So if I had a storyboard, or if I had a title on my storyboard that I'm following right now, the title would be character waves at camera. So I know that my storytelling pose is going to be her waving, and I'm going to treat this like it's a photograph, like I'm looking to try and create a snapshot of this animation. And I'm not going to be doing any other frames at this point. I'm just doing this first frame. All my character and everything goes into this first golden drawing. So I'm going to move her hand up there like that. I'm going to grab the pole vector back here, which controls the arm. So I'm going to put the pole vector down here so that her elbow is pointing roughly down at the ground. So that'll do. And as far as her hand is concerned, I'm just doing it now in front of the monitor. I'm waving and I'm looking at my arm to see how I wave. And my arm, my hand is over here out in front of my body. So I'm going to put hers about there as well. And it's probably tucked in a little bit more. So it's probably about there. And it's also more like there for me when I'm waving. I think I'll move her slightly so that she's positioned better for the camera. So I think I'll put her about there. Right, now I'm going to start looking at the render cam a bit more. Now that I know that in 3D space over here she's positioned reasonably well, I'm going to start looking through the render cam. And I think I'll put this golden pose here. So she's going to have her hand closer to her head. And put a bit more rotation in it as well. And then I'm going to look through here again. I think I'll probably bend the hand back that way slightly. But yeah, I think that looks like a wave. Her fingers are already reasonable for a wave. I'm just looking at my own hand when I'm waving, and my fingers are just relaxed. They're not really in any particular place. But no, in general, I keep my fingers relaxed when I'm waving. Right, so I'm happy with that first golden pose. And down here, where I put my keyframes originally, it's all set. So now I need to figure out how long it takes to wave. So this is going to be a generic wave. It's just going to be the basic movement of the hand. I'm not really thinking too much about character or acting or context. Now I'm already realizing that everything's happening over here on this side of the timeline, so I'm just going to shrink this down. So now I'm happy with my storytelling pose of her waving at the camera. I'm now going to start putting in extreme positions around the pose. And the first extreme position for me is going to be when her hand's on the other side of the wave. So there we are. And I can scrub back and forwards like this because I'm unstepped, which is essentially the same as frame flipping with cell animation or frame skipping on the camera in stop motion animation. Yeah, I quite like that. I think that's okay. So the reason I've gone with 9 is so that I've got this frame right in the middle, perfectly positioned to give me an in-between frame. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 frames along, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. If I'd had this on 8, there wouldn't be a position in the middle. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it would be 1, 2, 3, and there wouldn't be an even position in the middle. There wouldn't be an even breakdown in the middle of the two extremes, which is why I've gone with 9. So now I've got an equal amount of spacing between my breakdown and my two extremes. And that's going to make my life a lot easier, because it also means that that will break into halves as well, like this. And again, I've got even spacing and even timing. So I'm looking at my golden pose there, which has now become an extreme. I'm looking at the opposing extreme. I'm going to move that down a bit and just keep flicking back and forwards just to get an idea of how well that's working. Doesn't look too bad. I'm just going to play around with it a bit until I'm happy with how that is. I'm going to put my breakdown position in now, which is going to go on frame 5, because that's directly in between frame 1 and frame 9, frame 5. So it's time to put the breakdown in. And a little trick that I like to use, I'll take the frame that I'm going towards, so in this case frame 9, I'll copy it and I'll paste it onto frame 5 where the breakdown is going to go. And then I'll essentially build, I'll take that back a few notches like that as a way of getting an in-between. And I can sort of look at frame 5, see how it's moving, and then say, right, okay, well I can see where it's going. It's just a good place to start when you're building a breakdown. Yeah, it's alright. That looks okay. Not the most amount of drag in the world. Enough though. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, now I'm going to build my way back to this first position. I'm going to make a waving loop. So I'm going to take this one. Let me just remind myself how far we are. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means that in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's where it's going to end. So I'm going to take this frame 1, I'm going to copy and paste it onto frame 17. So I know that that's where my loop begins over here and my loop's going to end here. So I'm going to set my time slider to accommodate only 17 frames. And when the loop's finished, you would actually go to 16 because you wouldn't want to repeat the same frame twice. But for the time being, I'm going to stay on 17 like that. Right, so let me play this. Yeah, okay. Right, I need to put another breakdown in, and that breakdown will be here on frame 13. So I'm going to approach this one differently. Before, I copied and pasted 9 onto there, and then tried to retrofit. But this time I'm just going to do it by eye. So I'm just going to look at it. I'm staring at the hand right now, just looking at the way it moves. And then I'm going to put a breakdown in there. Drag it over, add a bit of drag like that. Yeah. Travelled a bit too far. Not bad, very stiff. I'm going to flow the hand, I'm going to let the hand drag a bit as it goes through the air, so that it's got somewhere to rotate to. Yeah, that's better. If you look at the rotation from the pass position to there, the rotation happens towards the end, and the hand sort of drags through. Let me have a look at 5 and see if there's a way of dragging 5 a bit more. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think that's okay. And 13, might drag that a bit more like that. Let's have a look. Probably dragging it a bit too much on 13. Yeah. So I've got my extreme positions in, which is 1, 9, and 17. And then my storytelling drawings, my storytelling poses. Number 1 was my original golden pose that I started with. And then 5 is a breakdown between 1 and 9. So it's that middle position. Then 13 is a breakdown position between 9 and 17. I'm going to have a look now at the graph editor to see how well my curves are moving around. I'm going to look at translate first. Make this slightly bigger. There we go. So I'm going to have a look at translate first and just see how all this is working. And you can see that translate X is the one that's doing the most work. And I'm going to add a little bit more slow out there. So there's a big move there, and then it slows down a bit there. I'll be putting other keyframes in to really make sure my slow out's okay, but I'm just choosing where to favor things at the moment. And I like it when my breakdowns favor one side over another. So I think I'll do the same with that as well. I think I'll just push that up there. So that's the extreme there. It's then moved down to there. Now I'm going to have a look at Z. Same again. I think I'll just favor that way, and I'll favor that way slightly. Let me just play it back. Yeah. Right, let's have a look at the rotates. So rotate X. So that's it there. Rotate X then drags a lot that way. What's rotate Y doing? I'm going to drag this around so I can see what it's doing to the hand. It's rotating it like that. So I think I'll just send that one off in the right direction. Back towards there. So the extreme frame moves towards the breakdown frame. It's quite a big jump. And then the breakdown frame slows out into the extreme. And I'm going to do the same in the other direction as well. The extreme will take a big jump towards the breakdown, and then the breakdown will slow in to there. And I'll do the same with this one as well. Let me have a look and see what's moving. Right, so this is the really important one. This is the side to side. And the more I do that, the more it drags. And you can see as I change this gimbal, you can see how that's affecting the graph editor. And then there's a big snap there. There's a very big snap there. And then that wrist drags back in the opposite direction. Yeah, I don't mind that so much. I think that's good. So you see there's a fine balance between making the graph editor look good and then making sure it looks good in the actual viewport. And the viewport's always going to be the most important thing. Stuff doesn't need to be slowing in and slowing out perfectly yet. That stuff will come later when we do all these in-between positions. So I'm really happy with that. I think that's a good block. So that is the end of the block out stage. So we've done the golden pose bit. We've gone in now and added in the extremes and the breakdowns, which is called blocking. Now we're going to fill in all the in-betweens.